Hello, everyone. Welcome to my update for who knows what day it is in March. The world is ending, man, and we're talking about the stand. Baby, can you dig your man? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today. Larry Underwood's hit classic from the 1980s. Who's Larry Underwood? We'll get to that. Joining me from Las Vegas, Dangerville Zone number one.
That's right.
The land of Randall Flagg is Ryan Rayonec.
Have you already started having dreams, Ryan?
No, but I wanted to inform all you people out there with the Rona that it came from China.
Yes,
that was the greatest soundbite like 10 years the other day. It was awesome.
Well, I'll tell you, we're going to get into all that. We're going to talk about the stand, and then we're going to leap into how that relates to what we're going through right now. I've been wanting to do a show about the stand for a while because I'm a big fan of Stephen King's work. I don't know if it's my favorite book of his, but it's one of them. But anyway, I want to talk a little bit about how this book kind of came about, where it all came from. Stephen King had always wanted to write a big, broad, epic story, like Lord of the Rings. He wanted to write his Lord of the Rings, but he didn't want to do it in like a fantasy setting, even though he did kind of do that later with another book, but called The Talisman. But he wanted to set it in like modern day America. And instead of a hobbit, he was going to get a Texan. And instead of Mordor, the land of darkness would be Las Vegas. I knew they'd get a reaction from Ryan. Now
I love that part though, like the moment you text me about this, I'm like, yeah, like 20 minutes ago, Stephen King said this isn't like this. He's trying to distance himself from this like right away.
He is. A couple days ago, he went on record as saying the stand is not the coronavirus. But that said, I do remember an interview Stephen King did years ago where it wasn't that long ago, where he said every time like the swine flu or whatever comes along, the stand, like the cells on it spike. So I bet right now those cells are spiking like fucking crazy, because never has the world seemed so much like the world of the stand as it does right now.
Was there a chapter on toilet paper?
No, but there should have been. He did not have that much foresight that when people get sick, everybody rushes out for toilet paper. And sort of like the coronavirus, the super flu in the stand does not give you the shits.
Now, I'm still kind of wondering how that happened, because like our whole lives when we're like doing that whole like apocalyptic like this could happen thing, like you think people rushing to buy food, it was like first, second, no, we're all getting toilet paper. Fuck the food, fuck everything else. We're getting toilet paper. Like that was one of the more left field things of this whole thing.
Now, I remember during Y2K, my grandmother, she bought lots of toilet paper and lots of canned goods. She just thought the world was going to end. I mean, she was a senior citizen at the time. She didn't quite understand. You know.
Yeah, I remember that. That was a weird time. It wasn't as weird as this because nothing actually happened.
Yeah.
Now, now shit's actually starting to happen a little bit. But anyway, let me jump into the stand for just a minute, and we'll go kind of back and forth. I'm sure we'll have plenty of things to talk about as we go through this book and miniseries, because when I was a kid, 1994, this was a big fucking deal when this miniseries came out. And, we'll get to that. But surprisingly, Stephen King's original idea for a book about this sort of thing did not have to do with the super flu necessarily. He wanted to write a book about Patty Hearst. Because keep in mind, this is the 70s. And Patty Hearst, for those of you who don't know, was an heiress of the Hearst fortune, William Randolph Hearst. She was kidnapped by a sort of domestic terrorism group called the Siboneyes Liberation Army. Siboneyes Liberation Army. Say that fast 3 times. And they kept her in
the bad guys from Back to the Future.
I know, right? They're the Libyans. And they probably rode around in the same van. But they kidnapped this Patty Hearst, and they kept her in a closet. And according to the story, they brainwashed her, and they went out and started robbing banks, and she robbed banks with them. She apparently became a member by proxy of the SLA. That's what I'm going to call it from now on. And Stephen King wanted to write a book about this, couldn't figure out how. He said he couldn't figure out a way into the story, which is kind of crazy considering how many books Stephen King has found a way into. But for some reason, he couldn't find a way into this story. And so one day, sitting at his typewriter, he wrote the words, "The world comes to an end, but everyone in the SLA is somehow immune." And that was the beginning of what would later become The Stand. Obviously, the Siboney's, I cannot say that. The SLA did not play a part in this. The SLA did not play a part in this. I should have done my exercises, my theater exercises, all that shit. But that, which irritated the hell out of me back then, man. Not to change the subject or anything, but these fucking theater.
I remember.
Do you remember? She was there. Anyway. So that's what he wound up starting with. He had writer's block as he was writing it. He came up with. I tell you.
It was only 1,200 pages.
Yeah. Can you imagine being halfway through a 1,200-page book and realizing, oh, that's all right. I only have like 600 more pages to go. He originally couldn't figure out the ending of the book. And I guess as we're going through the story throughout the show, I'll tell you how he eventually solved that writer's block problem. Because there is a certain section of this book that, even though I'm a fan of Stephen King, I feel like kind of gets bogged down a little bit. And I can kind of see as I'm reading it, maybe this was a guy who didn't know the direction he wanted to go for about 200 pages, you know. And then in the book, something happens. And at that point, everything turns around and starts to get really interesting again. And it just so happens that the thing that happens is the thing that he came up with to solve his writer's block issue. He also kind of combined the SLA idea and the idea of them being immune to a news article he read about a spill in Utah, a chemical spill that caused a bunch of sheep to die on the roadside. And then there was a quote in the newspaper article apparently where the guy said, well, it's a good thing the wind wasn't blowing west, because if so, Salt Lake City is right over there. And that inspired him the idea of the government somehow creating a chemical, or in this case, a virus, and it being set free, and then they have no way of combating it.
Because didn't Mark Wahlberg do that movie like 20 years later?
Yes. The Happening.
And you also have
Outbreak, which I'm sure is another thing that's spiking right now on Netflix, because I noticed that's out there. But the military that created the superflu in Stephen King's story
was China.
It was China. It was what was it called? It was called Project.
Oh, Project Blue.
Project Blue.
It was like the government, created the superflu, and it was by what's his name, General Bill Starkey, no relation to Richard.
Right, no Ringo. He was played by Ed Harris in the miniseries.
Yeah.
And this guy Bill Starkey is running this operation in the deserts of California underneath the military base. They're developing a biological weapon called the superflu, which is like a super strand of influenza that they would theoretically use on an enemy. But the problem is, it's never really explained too much, but it gets set free in the laboratory. And maybe the villain of the story has something to do with it, or maybe it's just something that fortuitously happens for him. But there's a guy that works on the base named Charles Campion, and he, at the last minute, gets his family and rushes out of the base.
Just close the gate.
They didn't close the gate. If they had just closed that damn gate,
everything would have been fine.
Everything would have been fine, because this guy and his family go across the country, manage to make it all the way to Texas, spreading this disease as they're going the whole way, and crash into a gas station down in Arnett, Texas. Bill Starkey's pissed. And so as this superflu starts to spread across the country, this guy goes nuts. Now, this isn't gone into too much in the miniseries, but in the book, well, one part is, in the miniseries, you do see that he orders the death of all civilians and journalists that might be able to spread the facts that the government are responsible for the superflu. So secretly, the government are killing journalists and people who are getting wise to this thing as it's starting to spread. Something he does in the book that's particularly nasty is Bill Starkey implements this plan in which he sends the superflu to other countries to be released so that they could never say that the origin was in America. Now, basically, Bill Starkey ended the world. And he eventually shoots himself. Motherfucker doesn't even get the flu. How's that? That's realistic, because they usually don't.
No.
But anyway, so in Texas, Ryan was pointing this out about the miniseries. He crashes, Campion crashes into a gas station. Yeah. And there's a bunch of like good old boys at the gas station. The star of the story, Stuart Redmond, is there, who's played by Gary Sinise just before
Forrest Gump comes out.
That's right. He's not quite Lieutenant Dan yet, and he is also one of Ryan's favorite actors of all time.
Lieutenant Dan of The Stand.
I'm being facetious because he hates Gary Sinise.
I don't hate the guy. I just disagree with a couple political. He's not that bad compared to other people I just like. He's not that bad. Especially with all this stuff going on, it's like, you know what, Gary Sinise, you get the official, like, I don't, you're good with me. I don't care no more. Like,
but he's always like helping like veterans and like.
Yeah, no. He does a lot of like. It's not like there's a bullet like long list of stuff that makes me angry about him. Just a couple things, so It's not even worth getting into.
Okay.
It's not like he's funding this shit.
That's right.
Now, before we get too deep, I just realized, and like I said, I hadn't seen it in a really, really long time, how many people are in this movie?
Tons
It's a
of
good
people.
cast.
I mean, for real though, like the dad from the TV show Alf is in it.
That's right, he is. That's right, and he's an asshole in this movie.
Wasn't the dad from that '70s show in it too? Wasn't he in the wasn't he one of the guys in the quarantine things? I thought I saw his face.
It could be.
I have to look at it again.
It looked just like Red. It looked just like Red.
I know the guy from Alf is in the quarantine because he's the one that goes to Arnett and is like, okay, everybody, we're going to get on the bus. And you're like, hey, Alf's dad is a fucking asshole.
I know.
But no, I mean, it was a big deal in 1994 when the miniseries came out because TV miniseries did not have...
off the point, though. We got off the point. When the guy wrecked, they made love to him instead of getting the fuck away.
That's right. Stu is like holding him lovingly.
We're all talking about social distancing. They're like, let's bathe in your germs. We don't know what you have, and like your face is turning bluish green, but let's just all like lay on top of each other.
And by the way, your wife and kid have turned black in the passenger seat because they're already dead by the time
no red flag. Let's not even tell the guy holding on to him that, hey, maybe, just maybe, stop cuddling. Nothing. Just.
That's right. Nothing. Yeah. It's something that happens kind of
throughout. It was a recurring theme. Like sick people are just cuddled throughout the whole movie. Oh wait, your brains are falling out. Let me just put it back in together with no gloves on.
Yeah, Stu.
Basically, science teachers in the '80s didn't know shit. We were all going to school and just being talked to, and they weren't teaching us anything.
Well, this book came out like in the '70s.
The original version came out in '78. Yeah.
So I used to work in orthodontist, and I knew a lady that worked. She started like in the late '70s, early '80s, and she said they didn't wear any of that. It didn't start until they started getting worried about like gloves and you just. That's what she told me. I don't know. I may be remembering wrong, but I remember her saying, "Yeah, we just."
It's like hashtag '70s be nasty.
Yeah.
Stuart Redmond from Arnett, Texas. He was immune after cuddling with Campion. Was immune. He's the main character, I guess you could say, of the book. Even though the book has a huge cast, and you can probably tell from the miniseries, the cast in the book is even bigger because the book there's a lot of stuff in the miniseries, but the book is like so much more stuff happens. And as we go through this, I might kind of throw in what we can. The second lead is. In the miniseries, Molly Ringwald.
Yeah, that's right. She plays was it Fran Goldsmith?
Yeah.
Is that her name? Okay. Yeah. And in the book, she's it's different than the film. She's pregnant by Jesse, her boyfriend.
Yeah.
And her mom is not quite pleased with her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the mom does not make an appearance in the miniseries. But
Yeah.
the
No.
mom is a real bitch in the book. She's like a classic Stephen King domineering mother, and like that Fran is like a daddy's girl, you know. And
Yeah.
Jesse is not mentioned in the miniseries.
Uh-uh.
I think he might be like a passing comment, but she's pregnant. I think in the miniseries there's a little bit of confusion about whose baby she's pregnant with, but
I
it's
wonder why that is, because this chick just skips around wherever she wants to go, and I thought that scene right after the Sinise scene where he's like, can we be more than friends? And she's like, we're always gonna be friends, and then pooh, puts her head right in his lap, like, yeah, because that's what everyone wants to hear right after you tell them that is you're gonna put your freaking head on my crotch when you know I like you.
well,
Like there's so many directorial things. I was just going crazy for 6 hours. Like, who's doing this?
I could tell you
But
that
I thought it was funny.
the director of the miniseries is a guy named Mick Garris, who wound up directing a lot of Stephen King miniseries. He also directed. Do you remember the movie Sleepwalkers?
Yes.
Like he went through his time period of everything he directed was Stephen King either wrote it or was adapting it.
Now, I'm going to bring this up. Did he do Tommy Knockers?
No, and I don't want to bring Tommy Knockers up because
That was
that
terrible.
that one was horrible. The Langoliers was terrible.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people love It, the miniseries, and I don't want to say this because I think I'm going to be tracked down with like torches and pitchforks and shit, but I'm not a huge fan of It, the miniseries. I think that Tim Curry is really good in it, but I don't think it's like all that. I'm going to get off that topic because I know there's a lot of horror fans and I don't want to die today. Not
I
from.
will say it flowed very well, though. For as much as like the attention to detail drove me crazy, the it's actually easy to watch. For 6 hours, it's very easy to watch.
And the effects are corny, but you can kind of get past them. They were good at the time.
Yeah.
Because there's like some really early CGI in the Stand miniseries that looks like Nintendo quality practically, like Sega Genesis, but it's not bad, if you can get past that.
You have to think it was made for TV,
Yeah, and it was a big budget too.
Yeah.
That was a big deal. This miniseries was huge. Rob Lowe.
Gosh.
Let's talk about Rob Lowe.
Lowe.
Rob Lowe, fresh off of all of his controversies in the late 80s, early 90s, was making a comeback in The Stand, playing Nick Andros, who was from Nebraska in the book. I think they say he's from Pennsylvania in the miniseries, but in the book he's from Nebraska, and he winds up passing through this town called Shoyo, which is fictitious, by the way, in Arkansas. And he's attacked by these like three rednecks, and he basically is the same as in the book. And he winds up getting at first thrown in jail, and then he becomes friends with the sheriff. What's not in the miniseries that is in the book is he really becomes good friends with the sheriff and the sheriff's wife. And when they get sick of the super flu, he nurses them, and he kind of takes over the responsibility of being the sheriff in this Arkansas town. That part is kind of in the book. But like I said, he's deaf and he's mute, and he communicates through writing on this little notepad that he has. He winds up becoming friends with a character that's really kind of funny in the miniseries, and I guess in the book as well, named Tom Cullen. Because when the shit hits the fan, Nick can't drive because he's deaf and he's mute, so he doesn't have a driver's license. He never learned to drive. Why would he? So he gets on a bicycle, and he makes his trek across the country on a bicycle. And along the way, he meets this guy named Tom Cullen, Moon. That spells Tom Cullen.
Spells everything.
That spells everything. And Tom Cullen is
I love the bikes too. They didn't even go Dumb and Dumber mopeds. They're like, let's get on pedal bikes.
Yes. Yeah, they're pedaling around, which in some ways I guess a bike would be better than a car, because in the miniseries and in the book, there seemed to be a lot of people who died on the road. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Like they were just driving their car and apparently died.
And you can also avoid traffic,
Yeah, motorcycles.
like if there's like a lot of dead people all over the road. You can just,
Yeah.
or you can take a side.
What
The back alley.
It always kind of struck me though as odd just how many people were in their car when they died of the superflu, because it just seemed like the road would probably be more empty, right?
You would think, yeah, people would stay home instead of being like Walking Dead, where they're all
I
headed.
think they were trying to sell it as sudden, because like as soon as the outbreak, broke out initially, it was sudden. They were probably trying to be like, look, people didn't even have like time to roll down their window; they were just dead.
Yeah, because the superflu is pretty nasty. It'll kill you pretty quick. I should probably mention before we get too much further a character named Abigail Fremantle, because the reason Nick got on his bicycle and was riding, and the reason all these people are going across the country, is because there are two figures that figure prominently in this story. One of them, the one I'm going to mention first, is a 106-year-old lady who lives in Hemingford Home, Nebraska. She's played by Ruby Dee in the miniseries, and her name is
Jesus.
There's a lot of Jesus. I'd say, and I want to go ahead and hit on that real quick while you mentioned it, Ryan, because this was the thing that Stephen King did in his books a lot. He uses this sort of repetitive thing, and when you're doing a 1,200-page book, the repetitive thing is kind of spread out. But when you do it in like a compressed movie or miniseries, it gets, I don't know, a little cheesy at times. There's a lot of God and Jesus talk, which I get it, because Mother Abigail is like the representation of goodness. She's like God's herald in this time. It's saying, oh, come to me, children. We'll all be happy together in Boulder, Colorado. And, on the other side, I guess I'll get to the other dude, the walking dude, here in a minute. But I wanted to mention Mother Abigail while we were talking about, kind of the good guys of the story. One of my favorite characters in the book, at least. I mean, I like him in the miniseries, but I really think he's one of the best characters in the book, is a guy named Larry Underwood.
Oh, yeah.
Larry Underwood is a singer and he's a songwriter from New York. And he just did a hit tune called Baby, Can I Dig Your Man? He's a righteous man. He's a righteous man. I
don't know if I like that title. It's like I didn't really think of it before you said twice. Like, it's kind of fucked up.
Well, it is. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and there are like differences with his storyline a little bit from the book to the miniseries, because in the book he meets Rita in New York, but in the movie her name is Nadine.
Yes. Yeah, that's the thing about Larry's story.
Which
the reason
she goes to Lincoln Tunnel and ODs.
Yeah, that's right. Because there's a big scene in the miniseries where they're going through the Lincoln Tunnel and there's all the dead, and it's an awesome scene, I must say. I really like that scene in the book and in the miniseries. But yeah, as you pointed out, in the book, Larry's story is a lot bigger, and that's why I say I think he's one of my favorite characters in the book. And I don't know, the miniseries he's fine, but I don't know, book, a lot more happens with Larry in the book. Because Larry is basically a really narcissistic, selfish kind of guy. He's your classic. He's been working for years as a musician, finally gets like his one hit, and he's making a lot of money. And he's basically like I would be. He would be like, and then the fucking superflu hits. Like the one time my career is about to take off, fucking superflu hits. By the way, I'm supposed to be filming a movie right now.
Yeah, I know.
That's actually true.
It is.
So what did the lady OD on?
For anyone who doesn't know, I can verify this is true.
Yes, this is true.
Yes.
What did Rita OD? Well, Rita.
Was it Alka-Seltzer cold and flu or?
No. Larry kind of jumps from woman to woman a lot in the book because he's a womanizer. Like he's like kind of a good-looking guy or whatever, narcissistic, and he's used to that. So even though the world's over, that doesn't mean he's going to stop. And he meets on the streets of New York this middle-aged kind of spinster with a lot of money. You get the idea she's like a widow, and her husband left her a bunch of dough, and she has all these jewels, and she's looking for like a young boy toy, and that's Larry, And so she's also immune, like Larry and like all these other people we're talking about. And they decide to get out of New York together once everybody dies. Because if you see the miniseries, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is walking around with saying the end times are here. One of
That
many
first time
celebrities.
he grabbed that guy, I was like, oh shit, it's Kareem.
It is
Yeah.
correct. Yeah. When I first saw the miniseries, I was like, no, that can't be. Yes.
I
Fucking
know.
Kareem.
I was like, what? Huh?
Yeah.
This movie
If you've
has
ever been around
everyone.
Kareem, if you've ever actually been around him walking next to normal people, it's one of the most hilarious sights you'll ever see. He's like just a full like everyone starts at his belly button and he's just walking around. It's amazing.
Well, even in the show, you can tell because, like, Adam Stork, I imagine, is a normal sized guy, and it's like Kareem's bending all the way over at the waist just to grab him, you know. Um, but anyway, yeah. So as you were saying, Rebecca, what does she OD on? She is like a pill popper, and she's kind of a depressive character, and Larry's holding her up the whole time, especially when they're going through the Lincoln Tunnel, because she's like, I can't. She basically does what Nadine does in the miniseries. She's like, I can't do this. This is an enclosed space, and there's all these dead people, and it's dark, and he has to drag her through this thing, this tunnel of horror. And they make it through. They get on some motorcycles. They go out into the country, and they're like pitching tents everywhere. And while they're in the tent, Rita takes a bunch of drugs, and Larry kind of thinks it might be a suicide or it might be accidental OD. But either way, she ODs. And there's actually a really good scene in the book where Larry wakes up and she's dead beside him, and she's like vomiting foam. And he gets freaked out and runs out of the tent. And he's like, God, I think she got foam on me. Like, he's so grossed out that he slept the whole night.
Instead of rolling her over on her side.
Yeah, she's dead as a door now. And he doesn't care. He's just afraid that, she vomited on him in the night. Because, again, Larry I guess Larry in some ways has a big arc in the story. Because you see Larry go from being an asshole to being like a good guy as it goes along. Because eventually he does meet Nadine. And Nadine Cross is a big important character in the story. She, in the book, has a little feral boy named Joe. Now, this is, again, different from the miniseries. Because remember, in the miniseries, it wasn't Nadine who was helping the little boy. Nadine in the book is a teacher. And she's basically kind of a nicer character throughout until near the end in the book. So I think that's probably the biggest difference between the book and the miniseries is the Nadine character, who is played, by the way, by Laura San Giacomo. Don't you just love saying that name?
Yeah.
Laura San Giacomo. For you Pretty Woman fans out there, she was Kit in Pretty Woman. So she was still a big deal at this time. Now, I want to talk for a second about a character. Speaking of Pretty Woman, let's jump over to Parker Lewis himself, Corin Nemec. He plays Harold Lauder in the miniseries, and Harold is a very important character, especially in the book, I would say, because he was the catalyst to make this. He was the reason the writer's block broke for Stephen King. He's a 16-year-old guy. He's kind of pudgy. He's got bad skin. I'm talking about the book now. Corin Nemec looked okay the whole time. But in the book, he's kind of pudgy. He's got bad skin. He loves Fran. They're both from the same town. And he's totally jealous of Stu.
Didn't he have bad skin in the beginning of the movie?
Yes, they did sort of do the bad skin thing. Yeah, in the movie a little bit. And they also did the whole thing where he was like a poet. He was an aspiring poet. He kept a journal that he writes in and he takes with him. There's sort of a connection in the book between him and Larry in so much as Larry is traveling, he keeps seeing these messages written on barns across the country saying, I'm with a group of 4 people, and we're heading to so-and-so. And then he goes to the next town, and we were here, and now we're heading to so-and-so. And these things are all signed Harold, because Harold is painting this on barns as he and his posse move across the country toward Boulder, Colorado. And Larry keeps seeing this and going, Harold, who is this Harold? I bet he's a really interesting, cool guy. Like, I can't wait to meet Harold. And then he meets Harold, and, Harold is he rubs a lot of people the wrong way. But like I said, he was the reason Stephen King got over the writer's block. Because what happens in the story, essentially, is going to Boulder, Colorado. That's where Mother Abigail has taken up residence. And you have the people who are dreaming of her and another character called the Walking Dude, the Dark Man. And you have to basically choose. There's only so many survivors, so many people in America that are immune. And theoretically, some of them are just wandering out, not choosing anybody. But most of them, yeah, Ryan's not choosing anybody. But most of them are choosing either to go to Boulder, Colorado, where Mother Abigail is setting up the free zone, or
I was actually hoping for the immune part.
yes, well, I hope I could be immune to this thing. I mean, that's the thing about The Stand. You watch it and you go, if I was in that situation, or you read it, the book, and say, if I was in that situation, what the fuck would I do here? Like this would be crazy.
I was about to ask,
We're
if
about to find out.
if
Here we are.
everybody in the U.S., are choosing between two, well, what about the other places around the world that
Good
he released
question.
this virus into? What are they doing? Who are they choosing?
Good question. One of which I have no answer to whatsoever. Because the book nor the miniseries really addresses that situation of what's happening in the rest of the world. Basically, it's only focusing on America because Stephen King says America is the most important country, so that's the only one we care about. I'm not putting words in his mouth. He may not have said that, but
good old days.
The good old days, yeah. But anyway, yeah. So you have the free zone down in Boulder, Colorado, and I guess now is a good time to talk about the other guy, the Walking Dude.
Yes.
Randall Flagg. What an interesting guy he is. Now, Randall Flagg is a very important character, not only in The Stand, but in Stephen King's whole oeuvre. You like that word? Oeuvre?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you why. Because Stephen King wrote this huge, epic series of books called The Dark Tower. And The Dark Tower is like the linchpin of the whole Stephen King universe. Because long before the movies got on this whole shared universe thing, like King was on that back in the 70s. All of Stephen King's books take place in the same kind of universe. And a lot of them tie together. You'll see characters from one book appear in another book. Obviously, the towns that he creates in Maine, a lot of the stories are set in these towns, and you find out, oh, well, yeah, that guy from that book knows this person. They're all connected. Like even The Stand, even though you think, how could that be connected to his other books? In The Dark Tower, you realize that the universe in which the superflu killed everybody does exist, but it's an alternate universe, Whoa. I heard myself again. Wow, this is trippy. I think the ass is kicked in. So anyway, what I was saying is that in The Dark Tower, Randall Flagg plays a big part. But he's introduced in this book, The Stand.
Well, in the book, would you call it like the long version, the extended version of the book? Mm-hmm. You find out he doesn't keel over at the end. Survive.
He does survive. The character is based loosely around. I was talking about the SLA. There was a guy that ran the. I'm not even going to try and say what it is again, but the people that kidnapped Patty Hearst, a guy named Donald DeFreeze was the leader of that group. Stephen King based Randall Flagg a little bit on him because the idea is that Randall Flagg is a very charismatic guy, and he's known for his outfit. He wears all denim. Do what? What'd you say?
Satan.
He's Satan.
Satan. I'm like a second and a half behind you guys, by the way. Like that phone call, like fuck me. So it's like it's hard. I'm just sitting here like, fuck.
Yeah, that's the difficulty of the phone communication over Skype. There's one little thing will throw it all off. But anyway, Randall Flagg, yeah, he's I call him Denim Surprise because he's all in his denim. He's got his jacket. He's got his jacket with all the little buttons on it. And he's very charismatic. He's very likable. Throughout the book, the idea is that he's been involved in all kinds of horrible things throughout history. There's mentions of him being involved with the KKK, with the Manson family. They do mention him having something to do with the Patty Hearst situation. There are mentions of him having murdered police officers and been responsible for riots. And now his time has come. And he has been given...
It's
Yeah.
basically like sympathy for the devil.
Basically so. Yeah, he's been everywhere. And he appears in several forms. He appears as a demon. He appears as a black crow, which is probably one of the more common versions that you see. He's able to control animals, wolves, and things like this. I know at one point in the book they say that he's a very good-looking guy, but if he smiles, birds fall dead from the phone lines and stuff like that. So what you find out in the greater version of like the Dark Tower and everything is that Randall Flagg is actually an emissary. He's the right-hand man of Stephen King's version of the devil, which is a character called the Crimson King. So Randall Flagg isn't really the devil, but he's like the devil's henchman. And it's like the Crimson King set him loose and said, you can take over this version of America that's been decimated by the super flu. This is all yours, pal. But as you said, in the book, there's an extended sort of epilogue where, Randall Flagg seemingly sort of dies in an explosion in Las Vegas of a nuclear warhead. Well, in the book, you find out that he didn't really die. He actually wakes up on a tropical sort of paradise with a bunch of primitive people, and he stands up and he says, "I'm here, I've come to be your leader." So the idea is there's this cyclic thing where you can't kill Randall Flagg, even though they did kind of kill him in the Dark Tower books, but we won't go into that. His right-hand man in the story is a guy named Lloyd Henreid, who's played by Miguel Fuhrer in the miniseries, who is, by the way, George Clooney's cousin. Not a lot of people know that. And he's basically like a petty crook who was arrested because he held up a gas station and people got killed during this thing. So he's sent to prison. And in prison, he winds up eating rats, and he almost eats his cellmate at one point because everybody dies in prison except for him. Until Randall Flagg shows up.
It was such a sloppy robbery.
It was a terrible robbery. Poke, fuck that thing.
They just like, you want to have no plan and pull up to the first place we see? Yes.
But it has a cool scene. I love that shot where he comes out and he looks up at the telephone pole and Randall Flagg is sitting on top of the pole. Do you remember that scene?
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty.
That was like the first time he came out, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's the first time you see him.
I thought this was messed up. Like the day you asked me to watch this, the previous day, like this crow just walked it, or not a crow, a raven just walked at me. Then you asked me to watch this, and I was like, yeah, this is kind of weird.
And it squawked at you
too often.
It squawked at you in Las Vegas.
In all fairness, I was like walking around in the middle of nowhere because I was like next to an airport where there's probably more ravens, but yeah.
Well, I should point out that the reason I say Las Vegas is because that's where Randall Flagg takes up residence. Like, Las Vegas is his territory. And this guy, Lloyd...
Makes a lot of sense once you live here.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I remember Stephen King said in an interview one time, he was trying to think of where the devil would take up residence. And obviously, he thought of Las Vegas. And Las Vegas winds up taking up residence in a penthouse in Las Vegas, where Lloyd Henreid, once Randall saves him from the prison, and Lloyd winds up becoming his overseer of all the day-to-day business in Las Vegas. Another interesting character is the Trash Can Man.
Oh yeah.
Played by Matt Fuhrer in the miniseries.
Yeah.
He is a pyromaniac, trashy, from Indiana. He burned down Gary, Indiana, the home of Michael Jackson. Trash Can Man
would have been a hero.
I know. Trash Can Man's like, fuck this. And he is a hero to Randall Flagg, who seems to have take a particular liking to this pyro. And he's known for being, he's kind of childlike. He has he's been given electroshock treatment and so he's all fucked up. And when he's burning down Gary, Indiana, in the book, I don't think they cover this in the miniseries, but he burns himself pretty badly because he sets the bomb the wrong way and it explodes too early and he burns.
He had to film this whole thing in makeup. He's like dramatically burned the entire time.
Yes.
I wonder
yeah.
how many hours of makeup he had, like a day.
And you do see, I think in the book, don't you see, I mean, not the book, in the miniseries, don't you see that his arm is totally wrapped in bandages? I'm pretty sure you do. Well, the reason that is.
I didn't even notice the bandages. It was just a constant. He's like a different degree of burn every time you see him.
Yes, and by the end, he's really fucked up. But we'll get into why that is.
Well, in the book, there's like this sequence with a character called the Kid with him.
Oh, the kid.
Right? Yeah, the Kid.
Yeah, the kid is not in the miniseries, but the kid is in the book, and
the Kid.
The Kid is an interesting.
Wasn't that a Disney movie?
Well, this is not a Disney character, I'll tell you, because the Kid is like this teenage guy from Shreveport, Louisiana, and he drives around a hot rod car, and he picks up Trash Can Man when he's walking down the side of the road. And the kid loves Coors beer. He's always throwing back Coors beer. But he's a real, like, crazy psychopathic guy who dresses up with, like, a leather jacket and really tight pants and cowboy boots. And, like, his catchphrase in the thing is, "You don't tell me, I tell you." And he has this if you ever, and he thinks he's smarter than everybody. And he winds up becoming Trash Can Man's, like, travel companion for a while, because he does awful things to Trash Can Man. It makes you feel sorry for the pyromaniac, because he winds up raping Trash Can Man at one point when they're in a motel. And Trash is, like I said, he's kind of a childlike personality. But I think
this is the part where I dozed off.
Yeah, well, no,
I don't remember this part at all.
This isn't in the miniseries. No, this is only in the book.
Okay, I was like, yeah, I fell asleep at the right time.
Yeah, only in the book do you get to see the Trash Can Man get raped by the kid. And I think the idea is that Randall Flagg puts the two characters together so that Trash Can Man can get to Vegas quicker in the hot rod car. But Randall Flagg is not pleased that Trash Can Man that the kid is treating Trashy like this. And we find out why when they're in, or we find out what happens when they're in Colorado at the Eisenhower Tunnel. Because in the book, there's another tunnel scene where everything is jammed up with traffic. They can't get through. And Trash Can Man gets out of the hot rod, and the kid winds up getting trapped in the hot rod with Randall Flagg's wolves around the car. And so Trash moves on his way to Vegas, and Randall Flagg leaves these wolves standing by the car. And for a while, you don't know what happened to the kid. Like, because he ran out of bullets in the story. So he's got his gun, but he can't get out of the car with these wolves. And eventually, you find out that as the four guys are heading for Las Vegas, the four good guys, that they find this car, and you find that he tried to get out of the car and the wolves ripped him to pieces. So Randall Flagg just used a kid to get Trash Can Man a little closer to Vegas, and then killed him with wolves. But I'm glad you pointed that out, because the kid is a really interesting character, and it's a long section in the book. But I guess they felt for the miniseries it was maybe a little too edgy for television. Mm-hmm. Or maybe they felt it was too much of a diversion. Like, we don't want to go off with the Trash Can Man and the kid for so long. Let's just get the show going, you know? But when Trashy finally gets to Vegas, Flagg gives him the job of basically rigging warheads at Indian Springs Air Force Base. Because Flagg's idea is he's going to put a bunch of these warheads on planes, and he's going to destroy Mother Abigail in the free zone in Colorado, killing everybody that chose her, and leaving himself as the emperor, at least of America. You know, who knows what's going on.
It's all coming together.
It's all coming together, yeah. So the free zone, that is the point in the book when basically I lose a lot of interest. There's long sections once they all get to Boulder, Colorado, and this is truncated in the miniseries. But in the book, when they get to Boulder, there's a lot of talk about them setting up a new government and who's going to be doing what, and meetings and town halls. And it gets a little tedious, I must admit, reading it. And there's a lot of discussion between characters about, are we not just falling back into the same trap? Like, is this what we were meant to do? The world ended. We have a fresh start, and so we're just going to start over a new government, and it's all going to become this again. We're all going to fall into all the same problems, which is a legitimate argument. And it seems to be the wrong route to take, because what they discover is Mother Abigail, she gets I think this has gone into in the miniseries, but I know it is in the book. She feels that she's sinned through pride and that she's become like this golden idol for people. And so she leaves at one point, and then they all get sort of, what are we going to do without our leader? And that's kind of the point. The idea is that you shouldn't have a leader. You should be able to live on your own and not have a golden idol. And then that's when the thing I'd mentioned earlier, the way Stephen King got out of his writer's block, is he had Harold Lauder, jealous of Fran and Stu, plant a bomb at a meeting. And the bomb... And cocaine, yeah. There's a great scene in the miniseries that always makes me laugh, where they're down in the basement and he's listening to disco and he's wiring up the bomb. And he's like, "Don't fuck with my disco." He doesn't say fuck because it's ABC, but he's like, "Nadine, don't fuck with my disco." But anyway, he sets off this bomb, and that was the thing that broke the writer's block for Stephen King. He realized you need to have something happen, so he had Harold blow him up. And and then after that, 4 of the good guys head off to Vegas, because Mother Abigail dies, but she tells them before she dies that the prophecy is the 4 of you are going to go to Vegas. One of you is going to fall along the way, and then you're going to have the final stand against Randall Flagg. Hence the title of the book.
Nadine really messed with his disco later.
Yes, Nadine. Yeah, because Nadine has to keep herself pure for Randall Flagg.
She pooped on the whole party.
She did. Yeah, and it's kind of funny because Harold is trying to be like the alpha male with Nadine, and it just doesn't quite work. And particularly when Randall Flagg is like...
It doesn't work either way. Soft or hard, just doesn't work out.
No, not at all. Because Randall's just like, "Keep your hands off my woman," and he throws Harold off a cliff when they're escaping to Vegas.
And that jacket, were you trying to be Bon Jovi at like London or something?
He did have a really fucking weird looking jacket. And it didn't really fit him very well either, because
it happened so quick. It's like they went from poetry nerd to I wear this now. I'm opening for Michael Jackson.
That's a good point, because it's a lot more delineated in the book. His transformation, because in the book, he loses a lot of weight, his skin clears up. I was talking before, he's kind of pudgy eventually. In the book, he like makes himself look better because he's trying to get Fran the whole time. So it's a more distinct...
the flu virus just clears his skin.
That's right. That's a side effect. It's a much more distinct sort of character arc. Yeah. Because he starts looking...
Yeah, it was like in 3 30-second bursts over the rest of the movie.
Yes. Yeah. And maybe that's a little bit of a shame in the miniseries that it happened so quickly. But as you said, Harold goes off. He's riding on his motorcycle, and Randall Flagg throws him off the ditch, and then he realized the error of his ways, and he shoots himself in the head. But it's a little too late now, because Randall has...
Chestnut.
That's right. Randall has to keep Nadine pure. She can't give herself to Harold or to anybody else, or to Larry, because she's Randall's. He's going to impregnate her with what is, I guess, like an antichrist kind of figure. I don't know. Really, it's a demon seed, I suppose. And he brings her to Las Vegas. Actually, he rapes her in the desert, and then he brings her to Las Vegas, and she's all fucked up. And she's pregnant with his demon seed baby. But what you see in the story is that a lot of Randall Flagg shit
There's like 20 guys in Vegas listening to this right now. Like, no, I got to fuck up more story here now.
But that's the thing about the Vegas thing, is it reminded me of what you said, Ryan, about the way people are in Vegas, because in the story, everything falls to shit. Like, nobody cooperates in Vegas. And Randall Flagg eventually has to get to a point where he's crucifying people who want to leave. Like, literally crucifying them on the side of the road because they said something about, "I want to leave this place." So once you go to Vegas, there's no getting out. And it gets so bad in the book. I know that Lloyd, his right-hand man, he starts to understand why people want to leave, and he starts to like, okay, you go, but I can't tell anybody because you're going to be killed along the way. So he's letting people get out of Vegas who want to leave. Of course, if Randall finds that out, he'll just crucify him too. And he doesn't find it out. But so Randall's shit's kind of falling to pieces, is what I'm trying to tell you. And even before the Free Zone boys get there. And several of them die along the way. And basically what you end up with is Larry Underwood and a guy named Ralph Brentner facing down Randall Flagg. And they're going to be drawn and quartered in front of everybody there on the Vegas Strip. Because Randall Flagg wants to show you what happens if you come to his territory and fuck with his shit. And that's when the final kind of climactic battle happens. Trash Can Man, he kind of goes nuts along the way through the story, and he winds up stealing a warhead, which is leaking radiation. And as you were saying, Ryan, he gets worse and worse. Well, in the miniseries, you see he drives up to the big meeting where they're going to be drawn and quartered by Flagg with this warhead, and he's all like melted and shit from radiation poisoning. And you know, he thinks he's delivering it to Flagg as a gift. Look, I brought you a warhead. But what he doesn't know is that I guess Trash Can Man is sort of being used by the benevolent force, the God or force or whatever, because bringing this warhead allows, I mean, it's one of those Stephen King endings. The hand of God literally appears, both in the book and in the miniseries, and grabs this warhead and sets it off right there in front of Randall Flagg and everybody in Vegas, killing everyone in Vegas and completely decimating the town. Ryan, that's all for you.
It's basically what I got outside right now.
Decimated Las Vegas. I was asking you before, like, is Randall around? Have you seen him yet? Any walking dudes?
There's like 80 Randalls. There's like 80 Randalls.
Yeah.
They're all soft though. They're all soft. It's not like Randall, like they got like Randall's heart, but the jujitsu of Daniel Stone when he's learning.
Yes, yeah. Well, that's a good thing. At least the actual guy hasn't shown up yet. But anyway, I mean, The Stand is a really interesting book, and it's a really interesting miniseries. I wanted to bring it up today because, obviously we got this Corona thing going on.
Stephen King and The Simpsons.
Dude, I didn't notice. Yeah, I didn't notice the last 82 of the last 85 hours in this room. I didn't notice. God, damn, this shit sucks.
It does suck. It does suck. And I guess now's as good a time as any to start talking a little bit about this Corona deal. We're all via satellite today because we're having to self-isolate. So we have Rebecca on the moon.
I'm on the moon with my backyard. I can go, at least I can go
MOON.
in my backyard.
MOON, that spells Rebecca.
That's right.
And then we have Ryan in Randall Flagg's Las Vegas. I'm direct from Boulder, Colorado, because I came over here to meet up with Mother Abigail. And, so I don't know. I guess maybe, yeah, Stephen King did it first, bitches. It's not Simpsons didn't do it first this time. And so anyway, I'm glad that we got to talk about this. I should say that there is a new version of The Stand that's about to be made. Through the years, they've gone through many different iterations of directors. Ben Affleck at one point was going to write and direct a version of The Stand, a feature film version. Feature film. Did you hear that? Jeez.
I did.
I became a Kentuckian there for a second.
You were the kid.
I was the kid. You don't tell me, I tell you. But Josh Boone is going to direct this, and it's not going to be a feature film anymore. It's now going to be a 10-part limited series. So,
imagine that.
And it's going to be, and one of Ryan's other favorite actors is going to be in it. Whoopi Goldberg is going to play Mother Abigail.
You haven't done shit since Sister Act.
I mean, what has she done since Sister Act? And there's just silence.
Yeah, she was on a roll there for a while, and then.
Yeah, she did The Color Purple. She did Ghost. She did Sister Act, and all of them were successful.
Jumpin' Jack Flash.
Oh, I did a Ryan
So
reaction
she
there.
did a good job.
Well, yeah, I mean, she's going to be Mother Abigail, and with a lot of makeup, I'm sure. 106 years
It could
old.
have been Oprah.
Oh my God, it could have been Oprah. That's a good point.
I think we all just need to be done with the Oprah. Can we just delete the Oprah?
You know, in real life, it would probably, if the stand happened, Oprah would probably be like, try to be the Mother Abigail. She would attempt to be Mother Abigail. She'd be like, everybody come to me,
No,
Boulder,
she's
Colorado.
like no. I am Mother Abigail.
I'm Mother Abigail.
Okay, Oprah.
We're going to meet in the free zone, and everybody's going to get a free car.
That's right.
That's Oprah doing the stand.
And then when you talk to her, she goes, mm-hmm. And then repeats what you said.
Oh, God, that was interviews, man. What happened with Oprah? Oprah used to be like, remember in the old days, she was like, oh, she would interview everybody. Now she can't interview for shit. Like, if she won't let anybody talk. Oprah is a great example of how not to conduct.
Why would you want to tell her anything anyway?
Because I remember like early mid-90s when the celebrities started going on her show, that's where you wanted to watch all the celebrity interviews.
Yeah.
Because Barbara Walters would just make them cry. So you'd watch Oprah. Because she'd have the whole show about them.
Well, now we're going to do, Rebecca, you and I are going to do a simulated Oprah interview. I'm going to be Oprah. Okay. So, Rebecca, tell me about your time in self-quarantine.
Well, it's been very interesting. You know, it's been very quarantine and, the shelves are very empty.
And that's what it's like. It's like the whole time. I can't understand what the people are saying because you're going, stop it. But now the only people.
It's like when they used to teach like the journalists, nod your head. People would be like,
Yeah.
You could just nod it every now and again. You don't have to be like aggressive all the time. Like, I understand.
Well, there
Slowly.
is the one lady. Someone was telling me about this one lady. When she interviews people, she'll go, "So what you're saying is," and then she'll repeat, and it's not what they said at all. Have you ever seen that meme? You need to look it up. So what you're saying is,
that sounds amazing.
And the guy's that's not what I said. I said this. I said 2 + 2 is 4. So what you're saying is, and there's like all these great memes. You need to look this up.
Hang on, we're going to simulate that too. Now that we're simulating interviews, so tell me something.
Bananas are yellow.
So what you're saying is oranges are green.
No, that's not what I said. I said that bananas are yellow.
So when she does this to people, do they respond? Like, do they say no?
I saw one interview of it, and I can't remember who it was with now. My brain is not working because I've been on the stand. But yeah, he's just kind of. No, that's not what I said. I said this.
Well, I tell you, it's crazy shit. My favorite interviews. You guys.
Jordan Peterson. That's who she interviews, and she keeps going. Okay. So what you're saying is, and he just looks confused.
Right. Fascinating. That's absolutely.
Kathy Newman.
But anyway, I don't know how we got off on that subject.
Sorry.
I think we started with Oprah or something. Oh, we were talking about Oprah.
Mother, Abigail.
Yeah, she would be the actual Mother Abigail, or at least attempt to. Well, anyway, I was telling you about the Josh Boone limited series that's coming up. It's going to star James Marsden as Stu Redman, and it's going to have Amber Heard, the evil Amber Heard. No, I'm just joking. Don't get crazy, folks. It's going to be in it. Greg Kinnear is going to be in it. So we'll see how it goes. It doesn't seem as star-studded a cast as the original, but it's kind of hard to beat that original because back in '94, like everybody was in the stand. Because do you remember even Kathy Bates was in there?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It was crazy because I hadn't seen it in a long time, and I'm like, because I watched the trailer and I was like, what?
Yeah.
That person too?
Yeah, everybody. Ed Harris didn't even get credited, but who knew Ed Harris at that point in time in the 90s would do a TV miniseries?
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's our show on the stand. and the coronavirus and Oprah's interviewing techniques and everything else. I'm glad you guys got to join me. Ryan, hope you had a good time, buddy. So watch out for Randall Flagg.
It's gonna be better than the other 23
we need to
hours
start
of the
heading.
day.
So is everyone going to start heading to Boulder now?
I think we need to start heading to Boulder. I don't know. I'm not going to Vegas. Ryan, you're gonna have to come here.
2 people in the mountains isolated.
Yeah.
I might. I got a friend in Boulder. It's actually a good time to come out there. I don't know if it's Boulder. He lives in Colorado though. I think it's near Boulder.
Close for when Mother Oprah Gale comes
I just want Mad. If we're gonna do the Mad Max thing, let's do it. Let's not just dance around the Mad Max. We going full Mad Max or not? We're going full.
That's right. Get out your SN.
I'm just waiting for that answer. If we're not going full Mad Max, let's just all go grocery shopping and start this shit back up. But if we're going full Mad Max, I want to come up.
What was the canned dog food that he had? What was it called? Oh God, I can't remember.
I have no idea. I haven't seen that in years.
We'll just stock up on that.
But I tell you, we need to get our studded S&M gear out, and we'll go full Mad Max. Because in the post-apocalyptic future, everybody's into bondage. Is what I learned from that movie.
Well, I'm gonna be the little kid in the second one.
I thought we all learned that from the internet.
I'm gonna be Tina Turner in the third one.
Yes.
Beyond Thunderdome. Huge bouffant hair.
Oprah might want that too.
But anyway, we're gonna wrap up this show. I hope you all have a good week. Stay away from the coronavirus. For God's sakes, be reasonable and rational. Don't panic buy. Wash your hands. Don't cough on people. Be respectful for a little while, and we'll get past this whole thing, and Randall Flagg won't come up.
And say something to your kids so that I don't have to and feel like a dickhead. This kid at Walmart yesterday, in the cart right in front of me, like 4 people just sitting there, like all feeling awkward, have no idea what to do, as the kid goes for like 5 minutes, and his mom wouldn't say shit. We're like, could you maybe stop your kid from spitting everywhere continuously forever? Fuck.
Yeah, somebody needs to.
My rant's over. I wanted to just yell at that lady yesterday, but holding it until now.
Well,
I never let it out.
I've seen people wearing gloves to the store, but then I wonder, do they wash their items off before they put them in the refrigerator? Because if they're wearing gloves and then
I think it's all an illusion. It's all an illusion. If you're anywhere near this, the little glove's not gonna help you in the. You know what I mean? If you breathe this in, all this ain't gonna help you. But precaution is good. Standing away from each other is good. I think there's a lot of positives to the whole self-quarantine thing. My concern is they don't have a vaccine, or which I don't want to think about a vaccine coming from people who may or may not have created the whole thing to begin with. But if there's more of this, what's to stop it from being like seasonal flu where it just keeps coming and coming and yep, we're going to have to have this problem again. What stops the problem from reoccurring is my concern.
Well, that's a good point, and that's a very valid point. I've thought about that as well. I don't know. I wish I had the answers. All I know is that MOON spells self-quarantine.
Yes.
And that's where we are right now.
And that's about how far we are with this whole thing, too.
And hopefully everything will get better, that we're reaching the peak of this thing, and then it'll start to head down.
Hey, Trump said it fix itself. I think we should all just listen.
I don't know if I believe that, but I don't want to get into that world because that's a whole other world I think people are trying to escape. So I hope we've helped you escape for at least an hour through our broadcast today. And again, we'll be back next week. The world is not going to be over by then, but if it does, make sure you go to Boulder, Colorado, and not Las Vegas. Ryan, you're welcome to come here or to Boulder. So get out of there when Randall shows up, will you? And until next,
I don't even know where I'm going yet.
Until next time, guys, please take care of yourselves. We'll see you.